here at Penn State working towards my PhD. And I know we pictured our scientists and what we think a scientist looks like, and that might be what a lot of you imagine. I am the white coat scientist. Specifically, I study the small molecules and the chemical compounds in plants that make us healthy and give us the nutrients that we need to survive. But I'm going to give you some more details about that later. Today, I'm going to share with you some of the story of how I went from having never considered a STEM career until I was already in college to being a full-time scientific researcher and loving every second of it. And hopefully, I can encourage you to take time to reflect on what you really care about in life and help you figure out how you can turn what you already love into a science career so you can help the people around you. So I have 3 brothers, and we're all really different ages. We had pretty different hobbies and did different sports growing up, so it was rare that we got to see each other at all throughout the week. But my mom made sure that every Sunday night we had dinner together as a family. This was time where we got to know each other. We bonded, we goofed around, and of course there was a fair bit of bickering with 3 boys. But this was a time that was really important to all of us. And these meals really did focus on the food. My mom made sure that the food we were eating was really nutritious, packed full of carbs and vegetables and protein to make sure that our minds and our bodies were well fueled for the upcoming week. And having 3 boys in the house, you can imagine we ate an unfathomable amount of food. Around 5th grade, I also started learning how to cook with my mom. And these dinners went from being something I looked forward to, just to be able to spend time with people I liked, to being more and more excited about sharing the meals that I was actually creating with the people I cared about. And these meals and these Sunday night dinners became the most important part of my life. But I never really took the time to question why we eat the foods we eat. For example, I never asked, why are we eating broccoli with dinner instead of ice cream? Well, don't get me wrong, we still ate a lot of ice cream. I wish I had asked that question sooner, and I'll tell you why towards the end. However important these dinners were to us, they didn't last forever. Eventually, my brothers graduated, they went to college, and got jobs. But they would still come home to Sunday night dinner whenever they could, and usually they talked about how much they loved their careers. And when I was a senior in high school, I started to realize, man, I gotta get one of those job things too, don't I? And since I had no idea what I wanted to do, I did the only logical thing, and I asked my friends. And it turns out a lot of my friends wanted to be teachers. So I took some time and reflected on the qualities of a teacher. You know, they're energetic, they're talkative, they get their summers off, and I said, that sounds great, let's do it. Sign me up. So I went to college with a lot of my friends, and we went to a small school called Winthrop University in South Carolina that has an amazing education program. And a cool thing about being in college is you get to pick what classes you do. So we had 2 priorities that first semester. The first was that we all took Education 101 together, and the second was that we'd have breakfast together at least 1 time a week. So fast forward, we're a few weeks into college, everyone seems to be loving Education 101, except me. And I disliked it so much, I actually dropped it. And this was scary. This was a time where I really felt alone. It felt like I was the only one who hadn't figured out what I wanted to do after college. I was the only one who didn't know. But since I had dropped that class, I had to pick something up and fill that spot. And the only class that fit that schedule was Chemistry 101. And it turns out, I loved it. It clicked for me. This was the first class I ever took that I was genuinely excited to go to. And at some point I even started looking forward to doing my homework. And that was just crazy to me. But I still didn't know what I wanted to do. No one in my family was in a STEM career. None of my friends seemed interested in science. So I didn't even know what a science career looked like. I didn't even know what options were there. And at the same time, since I was the only one I knew interested in science, I started to feel like an outcast. Like my friends wouldn't respect me the same way, or they would treat me differently. because I didn't want to follow the same path that they did. But as I mentioned, we had two priorities when we picked our classes that first semester. And the second one of having breakfast together became a really important tradition to all of us. You see, instead of just having breakfast in the dining hall like we normally would, we decided to take turns making each other breakfast in our really small dorm room kitchen. So once again, I was able to take that love of sharing meals that I created with the people I cared about. And that became a stable part of my life. And that allowed me to feel safe enough to open up to my friends about how I was feeling. And I couldn't have been more wrong. I wasn't alone. No one knew what they wanted to do. And of the 5 main friends I went to college with, one became a teacher. And the rest of us were all in STEM careers. So I wasn't the outcast. So at this point, I knew 2 things. I had this innate fascination with chemistry, and I really liked to eat. But I didn't really realize that I could make that a job until a few semesters later, when I took a class called ethnobotany. Ethnobotany is a study of how humans relate to the plants and nature around them, especially how we use plants for food and medicine. And in this class, something clicked for me. Crazy enough, I'm not the only person that likes to eat, and human civilization turned into what it is today when we switched from being hunters and gatherers to having a more stable food supply through growing and harvesting plants as crops. In this class, we also learned that the nutrients in plants that make us healthy are really just chemicals. It's all chemistry. And different plants have a different set of chemicals, so different plants provide different things that we need, which is why we eat a lot of different kinds of plants. For example, potatoes and foods like rice have a bunch of starches which give our body the fuel it needs to function. Whereas plants like beans have a bunch of protein that give our muscles what they need to grow and be strong. Whereas plants with a lot of sugar, like fruits, give our brain the fuel it needs for proper function. So in this class, I started to have an idea. What if we manipulated the chemistry of the plants we're already eating in order to improve the quality of the food we're consuming? And it turns out that's a job. I had never considered that doing research could be a career. And all it takes to get into a research career is just asking a question. And by asking a question and using whatever tools you can to answer that question, you're a scientist. So as a graduate student, that's what I do. I do scientific research full time to answer the question of how we can improve the nutrient quality of the food we're eating. And this is important, not just because it's something I care about and I think it's fun, but I recognize that I come from a place of privilege, having food as something that I always knew was going to be there for me and I was always able to look forward to. This is not the case for everyone. And this map shows in the United States the population of people who suffer with food insecurity. So instead of food being something that they look forward to and know is going to be there, they might have to wonder where their next meal is going to come from. So by manipulating plant chemistry to improve food quality, we can make plants more affordable, accessible, nutrient-dense for the people who need them the most. Now for me, eating and sharing meals has always been my passion. And that might not be the case for everyone in here. Maybe you play a sport, and the best part of your day is going to practice after school. Or maybe you like board games, and the best part of your week is game night with your friends. Maybe you're in the band, and nothing makes you happier than sharing music with others. And I bet if you're in this room, you're already interested in science. So hopefully you leave today and recognize that you can turn whatever it is you already care about into a science career. Now all of these things might not automatically seem like they can be a science career, but I bet they can, as long as you ask questions. For example, if you play a sport, and you've ever questioned why the more you run, the easier it gets, then you're already asking questions that can lead to a scientist. Or if you play board games, and you've ever wondered why a certain set of instructions make sense to you really quickly, but it takes your friends hours to figure out, then you're you're asking questions about how the brain functions, and that can make you scientists. Or if you're in the band and you've ever wondered why some instruments sound good together, some sound horrible together, that question puts you in line to be a scientist. And if we think back to how I wish I had just asked why we eat the foods we eat, like why we eat broccoli instead of ice cream, I would have been well on this track to being a scientist from the beginning. Whatever it is you're passionate about, stay curious about it and ask questions and start using whatever tools you have to answer those questions, because then you'll already be a scientist. So I encourage you to go home today and share a meal with people you love, eat your vegetables and your ice cream, and stay curious about whatever it is you're passionate about. Thank you.